Hey everyone, it's Mr. Hollywood, and today I will be giving a countdown of the top 10 best directors of all time, in my personal opinion. Now, before I give you my ranking, feel free to share your ranking down below in the comments, and let's begin. And one ground rule is that I had to see at least 3 movies from them for them to be eligible on the list. So, directors like Stanley Kubrick, I've only seen one movie, so that was 2001: A Space Odyssey, so you won't see him being included. So anyways, let's get started. Number 10, Peter Jackson. I've only seen his Lord of the Rings trilogy. Now, obviously, in my opinion, I think that's the greatest trilogy of all time in the history of film, and I loved all 3 of them so much that he did manage to sneak his way on the list. And, I just think Peter Jackson he's an amazing director. He has beautiful storytelling. He is beautiful at creating practical effects. And, obviously, I just thought all 3 Lord of the Rings movies were amazing. So, yes, he did manage to find his way on the list at number 10. Number 9. Staying in the topic of I've only seen films from this one franchise of them that they've directed, Christopher McCory. Now, he also technically wrote this movie called The Usual Suspects I love, but that doesn't really count towards his directing credits. So, in terms of what I've seen, the last 4 Mission Impossibles, I loved all 4 of them. Obviously, the Final Reckoning just came out, so that also does count towards him, and if anything, that elevated him on the list, because I feel like maybe before Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, he probably would have been number 10, but after that, I think he's number 9, and honestly, I think he could even move up to number 8, but as of right now, he's only my number 9. I loved all 4 of the Mission Impossible films that he directed, and, all 4 films were just amazing. The reason I think he edged out Peter Jackson is because that's 4 amazing films. So, simple math. I think I like Christopher McCory, or I think Christopher McCory is slightly better than Peter Jackson at this moment in time. Number 8, Michael Mann. I've only seen 3 movies of him, which would be Collateral, Heat, and The Insider. And all 3 of those movies are amazing. And I think the reason I had him a little bit above the other 2 is because I feel like he has a bit more of a range to his films. So that's part of the reason why I did have him at number 8. I think he's great at directing actors. I think, obviously, Collateral and Heat, the action, those films are amazing. But also the visual nighttime storytelling I just thought was beautiful. The Insider I thought was a great dramatic story about Russell Crowe's character, Jeffrey, who obviously knew something that most people didn't about tobacco company, and he was debating whether he'd want to expose it or not, because if he exposes it, he can get in trouble because he signed a non-disclosure agreement, but if he doesn't expose it, it can be more dangerous. So I thought, that's part of the reason why I thought The Insider was so amazing. I just thought all 3 of these movies were so amazing. So, right now, Michael Mann would be my number 8. My number 7, Quentin Tarantino. Staying in the topic of directors I've only seen 3 movies from. That's part of a reason why they're not in my top few spots, because I feel like the more movies I saw from someone, the better they had being higher on the list. In terms of what I did see, I saw Django Unchained, Pulp Fiction, and Reservoir Dogs. I love Django Unchained, but obviously the 2 films that elevated Quentin Tarantino were Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs. Those films were just on a whole other level. Pulp Fiction is debatably one of my 5 favorite movies of all time. I love Pulp Fiction. I thought Samuel L. Jackson and that might have given the best supporting actor performance of all time. And I just thought the whole movie was just so good. Also, I think Quentin Tarantino might be the best at writing dialogue, so that's part of the reason I have him above the other. Number 6, you could argue might be more of a personal pick, but I also truly believe they are one of the 10 best directors. They have probably as much lovers as they do haters. Zack Snyder. You guys can call me a Zack Snyder fanboy in the comments, and I'm okay with being considered a Zack Snyder fanboy because I unashamedly love Zack Snyder, and I think he is an amazing director. Now, it isn't just his superhero films I love. So obviously he did Man of Steel, BVS Ultimate Edition, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and yes, I'm only including the Ultimate Editions because we all know the theatrical cut of BVS and Justice League were both WB films that they botched down, which I understand if some people would think I'm just trying to acknowledge what I want to, but I mean, they are called the director's cuts for a reason. For me, Zack Snyder's Justice League is what elevates Zack Snyder for me. But I've also seen some of his non-superhero films, like Dawn of the Dead and 300, and I thought those were amazing too. I think visually, Zack Snyder might be the second best in terms of just directing visuals. And yes, I'll talk about who the number one of that is in a few minutes. Also, Rebel Moon. I know a lot of people were not a big fan of those films. I did actually see the Rebel Moon. Between the two of the Rebel Moon movies, I actually only saw the theatrical cut of the first one. I skipped the theatrical cut of Rebel Moon 2. I actually kind of enjoyed the first Rebel Moon theatrical cut, but then when I saw the Snyder cut of Rebel Moon, I thought that was even better, and I unapologetically loved the Rebel Moon 2 Snyder cut. So yeah, for me, Zack Snyder is an amazing director. I think he's great at directing visuals. I think he's a very unique storyteller. So for me, I understand why some people might think it's blasphemous to have Zack Snyder number 6. For me, in my opinion, he is the 6th best director of all time. Number 5, James Cameron. And I do think James Cameron is the best when it comes to directing visuals. So in terms of the movies he did that I saw, Terminators 1 and 2, Aliens, Titanic, both Avatars, and True Lies. And I loved all of them, even Avatar. I know a lot of people aren't as big of a fan of Avatar over time. I still really like both Avatar films. And if your weakest film is the first Avatar, then you're doing something right. Because I still love the first Avatar. And I do think Avatar Way of Water was a bit of a step up. And those were my two least favorite of his. But I still think they're both great movies. Now, in terms of my favorite James Cameron film, it's gotta be Terminator 2. That movie competes with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning for my favorite action film. I just love everything about Terminator 2. And then I thought Aliens was almost as great, and I thought the first Terminator was amazing too. So yeah, I think they're all great movies by James Cameron. I think he's a very unique storyteller, at least earlier James Cameron. Later films, storytelling wasn't his strongest suit, but visuals completely make up for it for me. And yeah, I think in terms of visuals, I think he blows every other director out of the water. So yeah, I still enjoy the newer James Cameron stuff. Even if they're not as strong storytelling, I still think visually they're out of this world. And I still think there's a lot of entertainment in every James Cameron film. So for me, he is the 5th best director of all time. Number 4, a lot of people would probably put them in the top 3, maybe even number 1. And I completely get that, and that is Christopher Nolan. The only director I've seen every film from on this list, and I think even ever. I've seen every Christopher Nolan movie. I will also try to rank them all in a few days. And I think they're all good movies. The only 2 that I didn't think were great were Following, which was obviously his very first film, and Dunkirk. But the other ones I thought were all great to some of my favorite films ever. In terms of what my favorite Christopher Nolan film is, I think it would be Interstellar or Inception. I kind of flip-flop between the 2 of them. I think right now I would go Interstellar, but it is one of those things where you ask me tomorrow, and it could change. The Dark Knight, obviously, is an amazing film. I mean, obviously, the whole Dark Knight trilogy was just amazing, and easily my favorite superhero trilogy. I mean, I think some of his other films, like The Prestige, Memento, Oppenheimer, were amazing. Even Insomnia, a film that I think is a bit underrated. Tenet, I loved. I loved all of his films except for Dunkirk and Following. But even those two, I still really enjoyed those films. And yeah, I think Christopher Nolan is just an amazing director. Amazing when it comes to directing visuals. Amazing when it comes to having interesting stories and directing actors. I think Christopher Nolan can do it all. And he is my number 4. My number 3, as a director, I've only seen 3 movies from, so that's actually the only reason I couldn't have him at number 1 or 2. However, I'm actually going to try to watch a few more of those films in a few days. And I really do want to see all of their films, because from what I've seen, I mean, their track record is off the charts from what I've seen from them. That is David Fincher. The only 3 films I saw were Seven, Fight Club, and Social Network. Social Network I thought was amazing. The Fight Club and Seven are 2 of my 10 favorite films of all time. And Fight Club is my favorite film ever. I mean, David Fincher, I feel like, could just tell interesting stories, and all of his films, I think, are very entertaining. I think he's amazing when it comes to directing actors. I mean, for me, there's nothing really not to love about David Fincher from what I've seen. I love all 3 of those films dearly. I know not all of his films got the best reviews, but I am still curious to see them all in the near future. But yeah, from what I've seen from David Fincher, he's my number 3 director. And we'll see if he ever moves up to number 1, or if the other films maybe move him lower. But as of right now, I think he's the 3rd best director. Number 2, number 1, I think are very similar in terms of my thoughts on them, and I feel like I can go either way. But my number 2 is Steven Spielberg, and I've seen a lot of his films. I haven't seen every Spielberg film, however, I've seen a lot of his films, and a lot of his iconic. And I'll just name a few of them off the bat. The first 4 Indiana Jones movies were all ones he directed. Of course, I saw all of them. Jaws, Jurassic Park, E.T., Catch Me If You Can, Schindler's List, Bridge of Spies, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Ready Player One. I've seen a lot of his main films. And Spielberg is just the guy. In terms of my favorite film of his, it would probably be Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. Pretty close with Raiders, but I've always liked Last Crusade a little bit more. And then in terms of the ones I feel like were the most underrated, I actually feel like Catch Me If You Can, Bridge of Spies were very underappreciated. And obviously in terms of some of my other favorites, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, which I know Schindler's List is definitely not the most rewatchable, but it's a film that I love, even though I'm probably not going to rewatch it anytime soon. Obviously films like E.T. and Jaws were amazing. So yeah, Spielberg has just a wide range of talent. He could do pretty much every genre, and I think he's consistently one of the best at everything. So yeah, Spielberg, there was almost no way I wasn't going to put him in the top 3, and he is my number 2. But in my opinion, the best director of all time is Martin Scorsese. A film director I've seen way less films than Spielberg, but from what I've seen, he's just amazing. Now, the films I have seen, I've only seen 5 of his films, and they're all just off the charts. Goodfellas, Raging Bull, The Departed, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Hugo. My favorite of which is Goodfellas I would say by a long shot, that The Departed is pretty amazing. Raging Bull is pretty amazing. Killers of the Flower Moon is pretty amazing. And Hugo, not as amazing, but still an amazing film. So yeah, the Goodfellas is my favorite. I mean, for me, I don't even know what else is there to say about Scorsese. I love how he goes for it during his films. He doesn't play it safe. I think he is amazing when it comes to directing actors, and I just think he makes his films dark but very memorable and very intriguing, where you're glued to the screen the entire time. I know some people might think his films are overly long, which I respectfully disagree, but that's fair enough. They work for me in terms of length of the films. But yeah, Scorsese, in my opinion, is the best director of all time, and we'll see if any director ever tops it. But for now, Scorsese is my number one. Now, thanks for watching. Feel free to share the directors who you think are the best down below in the comments, and I cannot wait to do a lot more videos this summer. Now, thanks for watching, and peace out.